Okay, hi everyone, welcome back. We're going to be continuing on with extensions today. We're going to be fixing up and explaining a few things that we didn't get to or I wasn't 100% sure of yesterday, and then moving on to how to use frameworks to allow your app and your extension to use the same code. So we're going to do a quick review of where we were. We're creating a today extension, which is the extension you see when you go to the notification center by swiping all the way left on your phone. And it is a quick view of information that you want somebody to see without getting too in-depth in your app. Common examples are like most recently played podcast, new TV show, stock price, things like that. So yesterday we created a dead simple one. It was pretty much just a button that appeared when this thing launched. And this was a hypothetical bird watching app where you would get like a featured bird of the day. That's like the idea of it. So a couple of things that I didn't get to yesterday was, let's start off with this one. So how to, if the user wants to go into your app and get further information, how do you allow them to do that? And the trick for that is you go into your main application, so our bird watching application, and we're going to give it a URL type. We're going to use universal links. So to do that, you go to your target of your main app, which is Birdwatcher here. You select the info link. You expand out URL types and you press plus. And we're going to give ourselves a URL scheme of bird app. And that's all you have to put in. You don't have to put in anything else besides that. That should do it. We're going to go back now to our today view controller. And remember, we have this action that's hooked up. Handle button was tapped. And what we do is we get a reference to our extension context. Remember, an extension context is something that all view controllers have. And when you are in an extension, you have access to that. And there's some information that you can pass. You can use it to pass back and forth or get information about the view controller that presented the extension. So we're going to open URL with completion handler. And we're going to say let URL equal URL string. And it, sorry, what did we call it again? We called it bird app. Very clever, Adam. Bird app. Okay, so it is bird app. Let me just check one thing here. Okay, yeah. So we're going to do bird app colon front slash. And that is like the front door to our app. Now, you use universal links in a lot of ways. You can use it to deep link into your app. If you send out a link to your app, if you want people to be able to click on a web link or an email link and go to your app, you can use universal links there. There's also things you can do to like have your app content mirror your actual website, and you post a JSON file on your website to help Apple kind of coordinate between the two. But this is just the most dead simple example, like our app's universal URL scheme, and you shouldn't actually use this. It should be like a reverse, something unique. Somebody else might have bird app, but this is just kind of a test case. And we'll just force unwrap it for now. And so we'll say open URL, completion handler. We'll just pass in nil because there's no cleanup that we have to do. Oh, I do this all the time. Okay, that was the type, not the instance. There we go. All right, let's see if this works. Today's birds running on my phone. Come on, buddy. There we go. Sweet. Okay, so there's our today extension. Couldn't be any simpler. It's currently in the expanded mode. That's the contracted mode, but whatever. It doesn't matter. We're going to tap the button. And because it understood that this was our universal URL and it was installed on our device, it went ahead and opened the app. But of course, the app right now is just blank. So it just showed a blank app. So that's how that works. The other thing, yeah, so Vue will transition with Coordinator. This is something we talked about yesterday, but we didn't actually get to showing how it works. So this Coordinator thing is pretty powerful. So we can say Coordinator, animate alongside transition. Context. This will again be context. Wait. This will be a context. So what this allows you to do is we take, so all right, let's back it up a little bit. Vue will transition to size with Coordinator is it's a method that's on Vue controller. It's nothing specifically to do with this type of today widget, but it's kind of cool to see how it works here. And basically you take your Coordinator and you can animate anything, any special properties of your screen that you want to animate. You can animate and coordinate the timing with the transition of your app. So as it's going from the condensed, the compact to the expanded mode, you'll get all the same timing functions and everything as the system provided ones because your animations are going to run at the same pace as this Coordinator. So one way we can see that is we can we'll basically just look at the size. So if size dot height is greater than 111, we're going to animate to our background view being red. All right, and otherwise, we'll go green. Now this is, I mean, obviously it's just kind of a toy example, and then this is the completion handler. So if you want to know when you're done, then you can call this, you know, for now we'll just print. Okay, so if the to size is the size we're animating, the size we're going to be growing to is greater than 111. So if we're going towards the more mode where everything's expanded, let's animate the view's background color to red at the same pace and timing function as the system animation. And if we're going down to compact, we're going to animate to green. And we'll get a little closer look at that by going to our debug menu on the simulator and clicking slow animations just so we can see how it all works. Okay, so we're going to click show less, and you can kind of see how it animates from a little bit green to very green as we go. And we'll click more. And nothing is happening. What the heck? Does our button still work? Nope. Okay, that's a little crazy. Not doing anything too wild here. Let's try taking it out of slow-mo mode and see if that impacts anything. Okay, show more, show less, show more. show this. Okay, well, for whatever reason, slow motion mode was screwing us up, but you can see how it all works. It actually, it moves so fast, it's really hard to tell. That's why I was trying to do slow-mo, but you get the point. So that is view will transition to size with coordinator and extension context open. Those are two of the main things that we missed yesterday. I'm going to move on. Now you can imagine that in most cases with the Today widget like this, you're going to be doing something far more complex than this. This is like the most simple dummy app you can imagine. And a lot of times you're going to be doing something that is going to be involving the same code as your primary app, like talking to the same server or talking to the same database or using the same logic. So what we want to do is we want to avoid duplication of code. We want to be able to run the same code in our main birdwatching app as we are in our Today extension. And if we have other extensions, you can have several extensions. The issue is that those extensions code. So if I put some code into the main bird watching app, I can't use it in my extension and vice versa. So the way to get around that is using a framework. And we're going to walk through exactly how to use a framework to do this. So so the first of all is that it's complicated and people have tons of bugs and problems with it. The way I would probably do it, if it was a production app, would be to create a framework using CocoaPods, even a local repository, and let CocoaPods manage all this stuff for me. But I wanted to better understand how it all works in the guts of it. So did it myself, and then I'll show you some of the resources in a little bit and some of the subtleties you have to be aware of. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our targets over here. We have our main target and our Today target, and we're going to add another target. And we're going to scroll down, and we're going to pick Cocoa Touch Framework. It's not the static library. This is the older way to do it, and it has a lot of limitations. Cocoa Touch Framework is iOS 8 and later, and it's supposed to be Apple's solution to make this problem of sharing code amongst targets and projects a lot easier. But as we'll see later, lots of people have problems with it. But I'm going to show you the basics. So we're going to click our Cocoa Touch Framework, and we're going to give it a name. We're going to call it BirdKit because it's like UI kit. It's like other types of kits in Apple's terminology, and it's a kit that we're going to carry around that we're going to be able to use on our different targets. So we'll call it BirdKit. We're going to choose Swift. Not going to include unit test now. We're going to include it in the project, but we're not going to embed it in the application. We're going to make it at the same level as these other two apps. Click Finish, and let's see what that did. It added a target here. It added a folder over here with two files, birdkit.h and an info.plist. Okay. Now, in our simple example, we're just going to add one Swift file to BirdKit. We're going to add a struct called bird call generator. It's going to go into BirdKit. You only want to put it in the BirdKit target. Okay. Now, one thing that's a little different than our normal just creating a file like this is that you can't just call struct bird call generator and then put in your stuff here. You have to, because this level of access is internal by default, which means anything in your module can see it. We're not in the same module as either the bird watcher or Today's birds. So in order to get around that, you've got to make it open. And then for a reason I'm not 100% clear on, you also have to have an initializer that can be seen is open, even if it doesn't do anything. Then we can make a, public. Where did I get open from? I'm sorry about that. Public, definitely not open. And we'll make a simple thing here, which is, well, we'll just make a public static func make bird call. And that will simply print all right, couldn't get much easier than this. It is, everything has to be open. So your struct, or public, your struct has to be public, your initializer has to be public, even if there's nothing to override. And whether this would be a static or an instance method or a property, if you want it to be seen out of your module here, out of this target, we're gonna have to make them all public. So we have a simple Swift class, or simple Swift struct. You don't need to do anything with the headers here. If you have Objective-C code that you want to put in, you can bring that in here. Notice that this bird kit header is public, which is good, so everything can see it. And right now, you won't be able to import bird kit. Okay, we can even try it out. We can say import bird kit. You're not going to see it. Here's the problem. You've got to go to your project. Then we're going to go to our target. We're going to bring up general. And then we're going to go down here to embedded binaries. And now you need, your framework to be located in this list with embedded binaries, as well as the linked frameworks and libraries. It has to be in both places. But if you follow Apple's guidance and you add it not by dragging it in over here, but by pressing the plus button on embedded binaries, it'll show up in the list, bird kit framework. So we want to pick that, the one with the little toolbox. And you'll see that it gets added to both the embedded binaries and the linked frameworks and libraries. There's other places in the app where you're going to see this, like here, but so it shows up here as well. But from my experience or from reading what Apple had to say, doing what I just did, go to your target, go to general, add it via the plus sign, via embedded libraries, and then you will have it added to both. If you go somewhere else and you try it or you try dragging it in, you might have some problems. You might have to do it twice. I would recommend sticking to this method right here. Okay, so now if we go up to view controller and we want to, so you can't just use bird call generator. And so first of all, you can't just randomly use it, right? You can't be like bird call, yeah, nothing's going to show up. So the first step is to import it, just like you have to import UIKit, you have to import birdkit. All right. So that's good. We can see it there. And then let's go with bird call generator dot make bird call. Sweet. Let's test it out, see if it worked. Nope, that's today's birds. We're gonna go switch in our scheme builder up here, scheme editor up here to birdwatcher. Run into the simulator. Caw. Okay, excellent. Now let's go to our today's birds and let's do the same thing. But remember, we haven't added birdkit to today's birds. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to switch to this target, today's birds. And for this one, we're going to add it to linked frameworks and libraries. Birdkit.framework. Here we go. Okay, now today's view controller. We're going to import birdkit, and then when view did load, again in our scheme editor, let's run our bird call. So there we go, and caw. So we got code reuse between two separate targets in our app. This is great. Okay, one more thing I forgot about here. Now, let's read this error and talk about it. Warning, linking against the DYLib, which is not safe for use in application extensions. So it's saying our birdkit is not safe for use in application extensions. So what we're going to do to fix this is we're going to go back to our project. We're going to go to birdkit. We're going to go to build settings, and let's see, where is it again? Not safe for use in application extensions, right? Okay. So again, we're on birdkit, in build settings, filtering down for extensions, and then you're going to see require only app extension safe API. And what this does is it makes your framework only allowed to use methods that are app extension safe. So I think what it does is it narrows down the types of methods you can use, the types of APIs you can use inside of your framework, to those that can be used across the different types of apps. So all the different types of extensions. And this makes it safe. So we're going to switch it over to yes. We're going to rebuild. The warning goes away. So now we can be confident that anything we put into birdkit can be used both in like a normal iOS app as well as an extension. So let's think about what we did here. So we allowed ourselves to we prevented ourselves from having to duplicate code, which is always a great thing. If we decided that we wanted to be a little more emphatic, caw, and we run today's birds again, there we go. We're going to get it updated across all of our apps. So a couple things to be wary of. iOS dynamic frameworks. Okay. There's a lot of different scenarios. What I mean by that is if you have one Xcode project with multiple targets, which is like the simplest case, which is what we did here. One project, multiple targets. But there's also scenarios where you can have multiple projects. And you can also have a scenario where you have a workspace with multiple projects. And there's different subtleties you have to be aware of how to set all of those up. Again, this is where it starts to get hairy. So there is an embedding frameworks in an app technical note, which is good to read if you're going to be doing anything more complicated. And there's also an issue that I've seen where, and I haven't been able to test this yet, but if you are using a framework and you build it for the simulator, and that creates one binary, and you create it on an actual device, that creates a different binary, and then you try to upload it to the App Store, you can potentially get rejected because it uses unnecessary, it's taking up the simulator build, the simulator binary with the actual device binary. And Apple says that that is unnecessary code, and it has rejected people. Haven't been able to test this yet. Something to look out for. There are people who have written build phase scripts to then strip out the simulator code, which just seems like a huge nightmare to me. But I also know that I've used CocoaPods a million times, and I've never had anything rejected for that. So I don't know if there's something that CocoaPods does which helps fix that issue, or if it's really not that big of a deal. It's something I'm definitely I want to get to at some point, but I haven't really understood it yet. Okay. We have finished up today extensions, and we've talked about frameworks. I think that's good for today. So thanks, everyone, and please feel free to comment or question, and look forward to hearing from you all. See you tomorrow. Thanks.